Namaste Bharat and welcome to the KRUSHI'S multiverse. This year, we celebrate 75 years of India's independence, and the remarkable document that guides our nation is the Constitution. In this video, we are diving deep into the Constituent Assembly, the group of brilliant minds who crafted this foundational text. We will uncover 75 facts, many based on recently released governmental documents and archival material, offering fresh insights into this pivotal period. The idea of a Constituent Assembly was first proposed by Manvendranath Roy in 1934. The first official demand from Indian National Congress for the Constituent Assembly was expressed in 1935. In 1938, Jawaharlal Nehru declared that Constitution of Free India must be framed by a Constituent Assembly, election basis on universal adult franchise without outside interference. This demand was accepted by the British in 1940, famously known as August Offer. In 1942, the KRUSHI'S mission was sent by the British, which proposed a Constituent Assembly would be formed to frame a new constitution for the country. This assembly would have members elected by the provisional assemblies and also nominated by princely states. But the failure of KRUSHI'S mission because the proposal was seen as too radical by the British and too conservative by the Indian National Congress, who wanted complete independence. The Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946 laid the groundwork for the Assembly's formation. Elections to the Constituent Assembly were held in July and August of 1946. In November 1946, the Indian Constituent Assembly was formed. The Assembly's first meeting took place on December 9, 1946 in the Constitution Hall, which is now called as Samvidhan Sadan. Dr. Sachidananda Sinha was the temporary chairman of the Assembly. As of 1946, the total strength of Constituent Assembly was 389 members. Out of which 296 were from British India, remaining 93 from princely states. From these 296 representatives of British India, 292 were elected from 11 governor provinces, whereas 4 representatives got elected from 4 chief commissionerate provinces, which are Azmir Mewar, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Assam and Delhi. These commissionerates were under direct administration of Governor General of India. The elections held were based on single transferable vote system with a proportional representation of 1:1 million. On the other hand, all 93 representatives of princely states were nominated instead of being elected. Each British Indian provisional state used to reserve seats for Muslims and Sikhs as per the communal award. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was not part of Constituent Assembly. The communal composition of the Assembly clearly demarcates Hindus as the majority community with 163 seats, followed by Muslims with 80 seats, scheduled caste at the third place with 31 seats, the Indian Christians and the backward tribes shared 6 seats each. Finally, there were 4 Sikhs, 3 Anglo-Indians and 3 Parsons. The political composition expressed a clear majority of Indian National Congress with 208 seats, followed by Muslim League with 73 seats. There were 7 different political parties with 1 representative each, and there were 8 independents too. In provisional representation, United Province stood as the largest province with 55 seats, followed by Madras 49, Bihar 36 and Bombay 21, etc. The first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held on 9th December 1946, which lasted for the 15 days till 23rd December 1946. The first session began with the Vande Mataram, symbolizing India's struggle for freedom and unity. Acharya J.B. Kripalani delivered inaugural address. The first day was concluded with all 207 members' signatures. On 11th December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the President of Constituent Assembly. Interestingly, there were 2 Vice Presidents for the Constituent Assembly. They were H.C. Mukherjee and V.T. Krishnamachari. The first thing that was discussed in the Constituent Assembly was the Objectives Resolution. This was introduced to the Constituent Assembly by Jawaharlal Nehru. There were total 8 objectives which discussed about independent sovereign Republic India, Union of India, state of autonomy, power derived from people, guaranteed justice and equality, minority backward and tribal safeguards, territorial integrity, and world peace. This Objectives Resolution was unanimously adopted by the Constituent Assembly on 22nd January 1947. It can be concluded that today's preamble of the Indian Constitution is a modified version of Objectives Resolution. This act made Constituent Assembly a fully sovereign body, which means now the Constituent Assembly can make any constitution it pleases. The Constituent Assembly was empowered to abrogate any law made by the British, including Indian Independence Act. This act made Constituent Assembly also a legislative body which got transitioned on the midnight of 14th and 15th August of 1947, which marked the final steps of colonial rule in independent India. Hence, it was also the first Parliament of India. Therefore, the same body used to function as the Constituent Assembly under the presidency of Dr. Rajendra Prasad, as well as it was also functioning as a Parliament of India under the leadership of G.V. Mavlankar, who was the first speaker. In 1947, the Constituent Assembly already met once in 1946 and the 4 times in 1947. Due to partition and lack of interest from princely states, the strength of the Constituent Assembly came down to 299. Out of which 229 were representing British India and 70 were from princely states. Now the top 3 provinces were United Province with 55 seats, followed by Madras and Bihar. Dr. Ambedkar initially contested from the Bombay but lost. He also lost his seat from Bengal after partition. However, Indian National Congress nominated him from the Bombay presidency again.
There were a total of 8 major and 13 minor committees. These major committees included Union Powers, Union Constitution and States Committee, chaired by Jawaharlal Nehru. Provincial Constitution Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribes were chaired by Sardar Patel. Procedural Rules Steering Committee were under the chairmanship of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. There were 5 subcommittees with separate chairs under Advisory Committee. Those were Fundamental Rights Committee, chaired by J.B. Kripalani, Minority Committee, chaired by H.C. Mukherjee, Northeast Frontier Tribal Committee by Gopinath Bordolai, Northwest Frontier Tribal Committee, which was omitted due to separation of Balochistan, and Excluded and Partial Community Committee was chaired by A.B. Thakur. Lastly, the Drafting Committee was chaired by B.R. Ambedkar.
The minor committees were Finance and Staff and National Flag under Dr. Rajendra Prasad, Chief Commissionerates and House Committee under B. Pattabi Sitaramaiah, Presidentials Committee under Krishna Swamy and Business Order Committee under K. M. Munishi. The first speaker, G.V. Mavlankar, headed the Constituent Assembly Functions Committee. Other minor committees were chaired by the prominent leaders like Varadarajulu, Nalini, S.K. Dhar, Usha, etc. There were 3 other minor committees which included National Flag, Supreme Court and Citizenship.
Drafting the Constitution. The Drafting Committee was held responsible to frame the prototype of the Constitution with 7 members under the chairmanship of Dr. Ambedkar. The committee was appointed by the Constituent Assembly on 29th of August 1947. The 7 members included Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman, Gopalaswamy Iyengar, A. Krishna Swamy, K. M. Munshi, Syed Muhammad Sadullah, N. M. Rao replaced B. L. Mitter, T. T. Krishnamachari, who replaced D. P. Khaitan. This committee took 141 days to prepare first draft of the Constitution. The first draft was submitted to the Constituent Assembly in February 1948. This initial draft consisted 315 articles and 8 schedules. A second draft with corrections was presented by the committee to the Constituent Assembly in October 1948. The final draft was introduced in November 1948. The Constituent Assembly discussed on the initial draft for 165 days. In this series of discussions, 7,635 amendments were proposed, out of which only 2,473 amendments were adopted.
The final draft was introduced on 4th November 1948 and discussed it for 5 days, which is considered as first reading of Indian Constitution. The second reading or clause-by-clause reading was done from 15th November 1948 to 17th October 1949. The third and final reading started on 14th November 1949 and concluded on 26th November 1949. On the same day, the final draft was adopted as the Indian Constitution by the Constituent Assembly. After adoption, the Constitution had 395 articles, 8 schedules, making it the largest constitution of that time. 15 articles among them were immediately enforced and rest of them were enforced from 26 January 1950. From 26 November 1950, all British laws were nullified except Privy Council. This Privy Council was abolished later by separate act in 1949.
Important facts and other functions of Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly adopted elephant as its seal. Sir B.N. Rao was made legal advisor for the Constituent Assembly. H.V.R. Iyengar acted as secretary to the Constituent Assembly. S.N. Mukherjee was the chief draftsman. There were 2 calligraphers, namely Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada, who wrote the final constitution in English in italics on a Melbourne loan paper from 28th of November 1949 to late April of 1950, and Vasant Krishna Vaidya, who wrote the same in Hindi. There were also 2 artists from Shantiniketan, namely Nandlal Bose, who decorated the entire constitution with 22 miniature illustrations from Indus Valley to Indian national movement. The another artist was B. Ram Manohar Sinha, who decorated the entire constitution along with Nandlal Bose. Few notable functions of the Constituent Assembly were: the Constituent Assembly adopted the tricolored national flag with Dharma Chakra on 22nd July 1947. It ratified India's membership in Commonwealth in May 1949. It adopted national anthem and song on 24th of January 1950. It also elected Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the President of India on the same day. There were a total of 11 sessions conducted in the span of 2 years, 11 months and 18 days, out of which 165 were working days. Total expenditure incurred were 64 lakhs. The original copies of Constitution of India were preserved in helium-filled cases in Samvidhan Sabha. The 7th session of the Constituent Assembly, held from 4th November 1948 to 8th January 1949, was the largest session. The 6th session, which commenced only for 1 day on 27th of January 1948, make as the smallest. Over 53,000 visitors witnessed the deliberations on making of the Constitution of India during these sessions. Indian Constitution and foreign influence. A total of 60 countries were visited by different members of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly has adopted the idea of concurrent list, FOTC and intercourse structure and joint sitting of the Parliament from Australian Constitution. It has also adopted DPSP, nominations to Rajya Sabha and President elections structure from Ireland. The Assembly also adopted ideals of justice from the then USSR. Constituent Assembly borrowed procedure established by law from Japan. It has also adopted suspension of fundamental rights during emergencies from Weimar German Constitution. Amendment procedures and elections to Rajya Sabha were borrowed from South Africa. Quasi-federal and strong center system was adopted from Canada. The parliamentary form of government was inspired by UK, and the independent judiciary with rigid features of constitution were inspired from USA. Women at Constituent Assembly. There were 15 women representatives as lawmakers in the Constituent Assembly. There was only one Dalit woman, Srimati Dakshayani Velayudhan from Madras, and there was only one Muslim woman, Srimati Begum Aizaz Rasul, who was only hockey player. It was a woman member who was Srimati Hansa Jeevraj Mehta who carried Indian national flag into the assembly for the first time. The proud mother of Lakshmi Sehgal of Jhansi Regiment of Indian National Army, Srimati Ammu Swaminathan, was also a member of Constituent Assembly. Other women members include Annie Mascarin, Durgabai Deshmukh, Kamla Chaudhary, Leela Roy, Malati Chaudhary, Purnima Banerjee, Rajkumari Amrut Kaur, Renuka Ray, Sarojini Naidu, Sucheta Kriplani, Vijayalakshmi Pandit. So, as we have explored, the Indian Constitution isn't just a legal document, it's a testament to the vision, dedication, and tireless efforts of a diverse group of individuals, from navigating the tumultuous period of partition to meticulously debating every clause. The members of the Constituent Assembly crafted a framework for a new nation. Their legacy continues to shape India even today, reminding us of the power of collaboration and the enduring importance of democratic principles. Like, share, and subscribe for more interesting and fascinating content. We will be back soon with more such videos. Until then, stay tuned.